Prime. The family of an 8-year-old woman who died of coronavirus at the Tamale Teaching Hospital is questioning why hospital authorities handed over the corpse to them to bury, despite strict protocols on how such burials should be carried out.
When somebody dies from COVID-19, you don't even have to come near to the dead person. We did the burial. Our community people went there and did the burial. We use the same van, community.
We'll get some answers from the Ghana Health Service. Meanwhile, autopsies recently performed on some persons who died from COVID-19 are expected to give medical practitioners a much better understanding of how the virus affects the human body, at least for us here in Ghana, and for us to know how to tackle it. Tonight we get to learn what it is the doctors have learned. President Akufo-Addo cut short for work to begin on abandoned 47-year-old maternity block at the Anoche Teaching Hospital 3 years after Joy News highlighted the needless deaths at the existing mother and baby unit as a result of congestion.
Electoral Commission responds to claims by the opposition NDC that it is scheming to rig the general elections. The Commission maintains it is impossible to conspire with any political party. And in business,
Association of Savings and Loans Companies welcome Bank of Ghana's financial interventions.
Who are interested and who expressed interest and also qualify, they are ready to take advantage of it.
Also in the bulletin, 63 buildings earmarked for demolition to make way for a road project at Abofo in Ashanti region is creating anxiety among property owners.
I'm Israel and anchoring Joy News Prime live on your terrestrial TV because we're free to air.
And I am Memefa Pao in the Joy News studio here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. The bulletin is also live on DSTV channel 421 and GoTV channel 144. Thanks for your company.
Joy News Prime headlines.
In our very first story, the Fiesta family of an 80-year-old woman who died of coronavirus at the Tamale Central Hospital may have passed on the infection to her relatives and persons who handle the body in preparation for burial. They say, contrary to claims by hospital authorities that they followed the health protocols to bury the deceased, the body was handed over to the family to bury when the death occurred. Family spokesperson Al-Hassan Hamza tells Joy News the family did the bathing and every other preparation before conveying the body with their own ambulance to the cemetery for burial, questioning why this should have happened when there are strict protocols for the burial of COVID-19 corpses. There's more in this report.
Speaking to Joy News, family spokesperson Al-Hassan Hamza said the family did the bathing and every other preparation before conveying the body with their own ambulance to the cemetery for burial.
We did the burial. We did everything. I don't know whether there's another protocol as they used to bury COVID-19 dead people. We were told that when somebody died from COVID-19, you don't even have to come near to the dead person. We did the burial. Our community people went there and did the burial. We used the same van, community van. We call something like what? Casket. That's why they use dead people and they send them to the cemetery. It is still in the community. We are using it as a community casket. We use it. So if you believe it, why do you force us to use all these things? And nothing has, you mentioned it, you call it due process. Nothing like due process has been followed. One, we use our own community ambulance to send the lady to the burial place.
Mr. Hamza said no health official had asked them to self-quarantine or any contact tracer visited them. He said they as a family already did not believe what the health authorities said following the controversy of the results of the test.
Even any person from the health ministry. So we are just following the due protocols as they ask us to do. Social distancing and then other things. That's what we have been doing. We are running our normal things in the house. Nobody followed to advise us to do anything. Contact tracing was not done. Nothing has been done. Our own sister who were taking care of the mother, our mother at the hospital, were still with us for good 4 days now. How can we believe that it is something like that? So I said, still contesting that. It's not true. The lady is not died from COVID-19. We said no. Now, once we said there's a mix-up with the names, we made a mistake and brought a lady's name to a man's name, which we couldn't understand. Fine. We said, now let us see the results of the thing. They said no. They cannot even see the results. That method, the lady in charge at the ward, that she cannot even see it herself. But it is our right. We just want to see that whether it's true that very day. Now that we are standing, anything coming to show us as a result, we won't believe it. Because they can alter so many things.
But the Northern Regional Director of Health Service, Dr. John D. Eliza, said they are surprised at the utterance of the family, showing pictures of health officials who he said led the burial process. Dr. Eliza said the hospital played a lead role, but also allowed the family to carry their rituals.
With respect to the burial, I'm rather surprised, because the idea is that we're trying to just also respect the rights of those people to follow their rights. So we made them part of the burial team. And this is the report that the hospital, the Central Hospital, is writing for me to send to Accra. Is it how normal burial in Tamale here? Is it how they dress? Do they count themselves? So if they said we didn't do anything, they buried it. This is the evidence for you to see whether we played a role or not. If they they came with their pickup, they wanted to go and bury the person, we told them no, we need to follow certain protocols. That's why our team said you need to dress this way, we need to follow you to the place to do this. So if we do that, if they use their pickup, is there anything wrong with that?
He said health officials had begun contact tracing from the hospital, but also raised concerns about the family refusing to cooperate, insisting that their mother did not die of the coronavirus.
Started contact tracing right from the hospital because we have some staff who were managing the case, and then some other people in their community. In their family, the medical director reported to me that some of them were resisting cooperating because they don't believe that they are already died from COVID-19.
Now, it's been 2 months since Ghana recorded its first cases of coronavirus. From the initial 2 cases, the country has recorded 5,530 cases with 674 recoveries and 24 deaths. Already, we're being told we need to come to terms with the fact that the disease will be with us for a while, and that would have to learn how to live with it, as we do with malaria, for instance. The experts, however, say the SARS-CoV-2 virus seems to have a life of its own and is yet to be fully understood. So what have the experts in Ghana come to know about how the disease affects the human body? Joining us to help us with some insights is Dr. Kaba Akoria, Director of Institutional Care Division at the Ghana Health Service, who is a leading member of Ghana's COVID-19 case management team. And Dr. Kaba recently coordinated autopsies on some persons who died of COVID-19 and will also share with us what they've come to know. Welcome, Dr. Kaba. And let's first start with this story that's coming from Tamale, where this family is saying that the body was handed over to them. Of course, the hospital authorities have responded and they're saying no, they were also involved, they were deeply involved in it. But how do you handle a situation where we would have to do some contact tracing as a result of the exposure?
All right, thank you so very much, Israel. First of all, let me say this. I don't like talking about COVID without saying a hi to all the gallant health workers who are frontliners, all those working in the hospitals. I call every health worker a frontliner because in the middle of the war, everybody will have his role to play. So hi to all of them, and they should keep it up. And also, you see that I'm by myself. That's why I don't have my mask on, but when I get to the point where I have to put it on, I'll put it on and make some little explanations. Now, let me say this about that. One of the things I've been talking of, and I used this term with a couple of friends some days ago, is about community ownership of COVID-19. And what do I mean by that? Community engagement, community education, but ownership. They should own it and help us. Because what we've seen with this case is pure communication gap. And I know very well that the regional director is a very capable person. I've spoken with him, I've spoken with his deputies, and we have strict protocols. Those protocols were adhered to, and they will address it definitely with better engagement, where the people will be, once we calm them down and we explain and explain, they will surely understand. But I want everyone to know that we have strict protocol when it comes to burial. And we only don't do it alone. We even collaborate with the environmental personnel from local government. And so there are things that we can corroborate, that we have burial teams, we get them trained, and they do what they're supposed to do when it comes to burial. We just don't give it to family members that go bury. But we want that community ownership, and we'll get this solved.
So, Dr. Kaba, the point you're making essentially is that burial teams handle COVID-19 deaths.
Absolutely, yes. Burial teams handle COVID-19 deaths.
All right.
And they are well trained from environmental.
All right. Let's move on to Ghana's case count right now. I know you've shared some thoughts about Ghana's COVID-19 case count some weeks back. Are you surprised that we're approaching 6,000 now?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. The point about it is that the more you test, the more cases you will get. And the less the public adhere to the prescribed measures that we've put in place, the more cases you will get, because then people keep transmitting, especially in the case where we have a lot of people asymptomatic, and we have a lot of people that this has not yet sunk into their brains, that look, we are dealing with something real. If you are on the ground, you see in the markets, you see in some sports what is happening. People just don't believe that it's happening because it's not sunk in their minds. And that is why I talk about the community ownership of this, community involvement. Because or else the figures will keep rising. All right.
The health minister on Thursday said Ghanaians should come to terms with the fact that the virus will be with us for a long time. Is that of concern to you, especially because the WHO has said so?
All right, Israel. Let me say this. It's not only a concern to me; it's a big worry to me. Because WHO 3 days ago on Wednesday conference, somebody asked a question: are we somewhere near a vaccine for this virus? And the answer was categorical, that for now, we still have some couple of years to go with it. Normally, vaccines will take about 10 years, a decade, 8 to 12 years to develop. Now, what is happening is that they're trying to work on this for at least by next year, but we also know what it entails. So, what they said is that we should be ready to handle this like any other disease, because at the end of the day, it is going to be with us for a while before we find it. Because there are only 3 ways of getting this thing done. And whenever WHO says something, it's talking for a lot of countries, all member countries, and there are recommendations. So every country got to take that and localize it and tailor it to its own situation, its context. And then this is our context, and this is why I say I'm worried. And I want you to listen, and everybody listening very carefully.
All right.
There are 3 things to do here. The one is that we get the vaccine. The second thing will be that if we don't get the vaccine, then we'll get into herd immunity, which means that about 50 to 70% of people got to be infected before we can say that we have herd. No country wants to do that because it's not a smart thing to do. A lot of people will die. The third thing which countries have done, and they've been a little successful, has been to extreme these measures where government does its part: contact tracing, testing, isolation, treatment, And then the people also do their part, which is the social, the community ownership. In our case, if we take this, right, we start to look at it, we need to look at it from two places. One is about the sub-region. Just as I was walking here, I was looking into our friends in Togo. They have like, still, they got their first case on the 6th of March. Burkina got this case on the 9th. Ivory Coast on the 11th of March. They recorded their cases before Ghana. And Togo is still 238 thereabouts. It means, one, either they are doing something so good, or two, they are not testing as much as we are testing. Should we lift any sanctions, and we go back to this ECOWAS deal, it means that anyone can still come into Ghana, and just with one case we'll be in a mess. The second thing is that if we look at it from our own internal issues, is that at this particular moment, Ghana, we are now experiencing this, walking into the regions, spreading into the regions, and this is what would happen. We are walking into rainy season straight away. During that rainy season, that's where a lot of people will be having flu. During that rainy season is famine. And then we have, in our regions, our health system is not as robust as in the capital or in Kumasi. Again, the youth in the regions, you and I do understand this, that in Ghana, most of the young ones in the regions, they move towards the capitals for greener pasture. So what is happening is that the elderly are more in the regions, or I would say, and they are the farmers. When it strikes them, we don't know what will happen. And imagine, a farmer is not going to get up early in the morning and say, look, I have a sore throat or I have a cough, so I'm not going to farm. And we know that people farm in groups, in clusters. And that is a big, big worry, because then when it hits the region, it will overwhelm our health system. And remember, quite recently, our president said we have 88 districts with our hospitals. If we get cases in those places, what happens? We are identifying this. We are working on that, but we just want people to know so that they cooperate.
So, Dr. Kaba, you've said quite a bit.
Yeah.
What are you saying we should do? Are we to begin mass testing? What should we do?
Israel, we've also learned so many things when it comes to mass testing. You know, with our partial lockdown, this is my personal lessons I got from it. You do not go into mass testing without a good testing capacity. And let me define what a good testing capacity means to me. Is that one, you should have all the resources, the logistics to do the testing. But two, it also means that you should be able to turn out the results within 24 hours or 48 hours. If not, what happens is that if you turn results out after 1 week, after 2 weeks, or after 1 month, what use will they be? So we need to prepare ourselves for that. But we can avoid the mass testing if we go into that place where the community owns this, and then we all abide by the use of the masks, the hand washing, and the sanitizer. Let me, just give me 1 second, let me say something. These days we all talk about the masks, right? But get it right. The use of masks does not substitute hand washing. Neither does it substitute sanitizers or social distance. It complements them. And neither is it for you to put it on and when you're going to talk to me, you remove it, because the virus is smart. When it gets into you, what it makes you want to cough. And when you cough, it goes to the next person. And that is why we say use the mask. So, and not to be touching it every second. So when we understand all this, I think we'll be able to progress better.
All right, Doc, you talk about the fact that we should be prepared to do a lot more testing, churn our tests a lot faster, but we have boosted our testing capacity in the last few weeks. We should be able to do this, shouldn't we?
Yeah, the fact that you should be, look, Israel, you know, whenever I listen to people talk about a positive case, there is something strong that comes into my mind as someone on the ground, and is this: when Ghana has 1 more case today, or 2, it means to me we need to find 2 more beds. We need to get food to feed someone for the next 18 days, right? It means to me we need to find more medicine for that person. It means we need to get more contact tracers. It means we need to get more suits, coveralls. It means we need more human resource, and it means that health workers stand a chance of being infected. So yes, we've boosted our testing capacity. Now we have about 9 places that can test. We have, I can mention them to you if you want. We have 2 in Tamale. We have 1 in Kumasi. We have veterinary services here, CSIR, Nuguchi. We have Takoradi. We have Kolebu. And so we have Volta region. So we've boosted it, but it's not enough.
Right.
We need to do
Doc,
more.
I have one final question I need to ask you before we end this interview.
Yeah.
We know some autopsies have been performed on COVID bodies. Do you have the results, and how relevant is that to Ghana's case management?
All right, so I'm not going to give you details. The details will come out later, but I can just give a gist. Yes, we did, and it was something very good to have been done. And I thank the pathologists who did this, and I thank the minister for the leadership in this, and the director general, and all those who cooperated, and all the pathologists in the country. We found out something very interesting, and the one is that...
And what did you find out?
One is that people actually die of COVID-19, but also people don't die of COVID-19 just like that. Some die because of the comorbidity. So what it means is that if we get a case, for instance, you are diabetic or hypertensive or a chronic smoker, and you come with COVID-19, there are two things that can happen here. One is either the COVID is actually consuming you up, or two is because you've actually decompensated with your original disease. And we found out that the original disease, if we treat it aggressively, you stand a chance of what? Surviving. And because of that, it has helped us, together with international literature. Of course, 2 or 4 cases is not enough to make a drastic change, but at least it's a data that talks to us, and that is the language of the deaf. That's the silent language of the deaf, that look, this happened to me, don't let it happen to the next. So we've improved our case management by adding anticoagulants to it, because we noticed that most of the disease had some kind of microthrombosis I don't like being very technical when I'm talking to the people. I like to be very, like they have some clots somewhere in the lungs that we need to use some tablets to really get them dissolved, or some medicine to get them dissolved, not necessarily tablets. We need to put some things in places, and we treat aggressively their original disease. And with that, more people will be surviving. And with that, Ghana is contributing to the literature, is sharing experience to the sub-region and to the world. And we hope that it will help improve the management of cases with COVID-19.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Kaba, for joining us in the studio with all the insights. Dr. Kaba is the Director of the Institutional Care Division at the Ghana Health Service and a leading member of Ghana's COVID-19 case management team. Over to you, Lemefa, in the studio.
I'm sure, Israel, this is a discussion we'll definitely have on Beyond the Lockdown, Learning to Live with the Virus, Sunday evening. You want to tune in for more on that. But for COVID-19 and its restrictive protocols, pomp and pageantry would have greeted the sword cutting for resumption of work on the maternal and baby unit block at the Komfo Teaching Hospital. It comes after over 4 decades of neglect and abandonment of the projects meant to ease pressure on existing facilities at the hospital. A Joy News special assignment documentary, Next to Die, told chilling stories of children dying due to lack of space. On Friday, a ceremony was held to pave way for work to begin. Unfortunately, Kumasi residents could not join in the fanfare, but Anaya Ojima has a wrap on the event.
Accordingly, ladies and gentlemen, I hereby declare the construction of the Komfo Teaching Hospital Maternity and Children's Block duly reactivated.
This statement, very usual at sword-cutting ceremonies, would have received loud cheers at the venue. For the sake of social distancing, however, people had to respond in their homes. Many people had dreamt of this day to bring child mortality to the barest minimum, or possibly end it. The 155 million euro loan facility gives a lifeline to the project, considered by interest individuals and groups as the game changer.
A project which is to be carried out within 36 months and whose funding has been fully secured. Once it is put up, the Maternity and Children's Block will be a state-of-the-art modern health edifice with pediatrics, gynecology and obstetrics units. It will serve as a referral center for 12 of the 16 regions of our country. It will be a 750-bed building with outpatient areas for adults and children, and it will have 10 operating theaters and diagnostic rooms, fully equipped with X-ray, ultrasound, and mammography facilities. It will house an intensive care unit, a high dependency unit, isolation rooms, and student lecture halls with the capacity to provide catering services for staff, patients, and students.
In 2017, a Joy News documentary reviewed an average of 4 children daily and approximately 120 mothers annually died at CARTH. The chilling stories of parents and health professionals here moved First Lady Rebecca Akufo-Addo to collaborate with the multimedia group for a facility as a stopgap measure. Today, a completion schedule of 3 years is set for the Game Changer project initiated under the Kutu Echampon military regime. Here is Chief Executive Officer of CARTH, Dr. Oheneba Osudanso.
In fact, for the records, this is the first time full funding has been secured for the completion of the migration project that we see here. I'm delighted because management and the board have been well involved in the processes, including the value for money assessments leading to this day.
Meanwhile, Health Minister Kweku Agyeman-Manu reiterates government's commitment to completing all other stalled projects.
Mr. President, we will see commission of the Kwai very soon, even before the end of July. We virtually completed. Tepa Hospital is so advanced, and that one to be completed, Your Excellency, this year.
2 names, Seth Kwame Boateng, producer of Next to Die, and Multimedia Group, are imprinted in the memory of thousands and millions of beneficiaries of the project.
President, when we saw the documentary, especially me, that was put up on Joy FM by Seth Kwame Boateng, which motivated your wife, Auntie Rebecca, to come and do what she did there. You continue to push me, and I was pushing my young people in the ministry. I just want to announce to you, Your Excellency, that that man, Seth Kwame Boateng, is here with us today. And I believe he will take the news along, that what he did just fall in line with Nana Addo's thinking and commitment, and we have seen what we are seeing here today.
After the expose by a media person, Seth, who works with Joy FM, it touched the heart of the First Lady, Her Excellency Rebecca Akufo-Addo.
From Kumasi for Joy News, Nanaya Ojima reporting.
Certainly a day of joy for all of us as we celebrate 25 years of media excellence. This is Joy News Prime. Still to come, 63 buildings earmarked for demolition to make way for a road project at Abofo in the Ashanti region is creating anxiety among property owners. We bring you business and more here on Joy News Prime. Please stay. It's time now for business. Great working week, Sandra.
Hello, the great MFR pal. Excited to have you here.
We've been talking a lot monetary policy today.
Exactly, but the most important thing is that the Savings and Loans Companies Association has been calling for some sort of intervention to mitigate their businesses at this COVID time. And fortunately, the BOG announced some measures and some interventions today. Excited, we'll be hearing from them. All right, so celebrating 25 years of joy. My name is Sandra Esinamap and I'm always here for business. Bank of Ghana's lending rate remains unchanged at 14.5%. Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, who announced this at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting today, attributed the decision to risk to the country's inflation outlook.
We are trying to be risk averse. and in a sense to protect depositors so that the banks will be careful about how they dissipate, earnings. And all that we are saying is that we can see the evolution of, weaker economic conditions, which means in the outlook one can expect that credit impairments would go up. One can expect that the banks will face a more challenging environment, and all of that will translate into non-performing loans. And therefore, it's important that we conserve the liquidity and the capital that the banks have at this time. So if you think about it, in the long run, it's in the interest of the shareholders themselves that the institutions will be stronger even after the end of this pandemic. We are going through this problem at a time that we have just completed a reform of the banking sector. We have strengthened their capital positions. And therefore, the banks are in a much stronger position to manage the developments that have taken place. Nevertheless, we are beginning to see emerging signs of weakness. Profits are going down, their operational costs are going up, the net interest income for banks are beginning to decline. So these are all warning signs in terms of the outlook. But overall, we think that they have the buffers. They have the capital buffers and they have the liquidity buffers to handle this pandemic.
Meanwhile, the country's total debt stock has gone up significantly to hit 236 billion cedis for the first quarter of 2020. This was captured in the latest summary of economic and financial data released by the Central Bank of Ghana. George Wafe has more in the following report.
According to the data, in just about 3 months, the total debt stock increased by 18 billion Ghana cedis since December 2019 to hit 236 billion Ghana cedis. However, tracking the debt position from March 2019 to March 2020, the total debt stock increased by 36.1 billion Ghana cedis. Joy businesses learned that this might not necessarily be as a result of fresh borrowing, but can be linked to the city's marginal depreciation during that period and some additional spending to help deal with the financial sector cleanup. The 236 billion Ghana cedis should translate to about 59.3% of the total value of the economy. Now, based on this debt, every Ghanaian should owe about 7,870 Ghana cedis if the debt is shared among a population size of 30 million. Some analysts have even argued that Ghanaians could be paying more in the form of taxes to help settle these debts. When it comes to the country's international reserves, the data put it at $10.2 billion, representing 4.8 months of import cover, slightly higher than our position with the same period last year. In the banking sector, there was a lot to smile about as loans that banks fear would go bad was improving. Deposits was picking up strongly, while loan advances was going up substantially.
And still on the financial sector, the Association of Savings and Loans Companies has been reacting to the measures instituted by the Central Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana, among other things, extended the recapitalization deadline for microfinance institutions and rural banks. Speaking to Joy Business, Executive Secretary of the Association, Shinebwakwa Konja Boachi, says the emergency liquidity support is welcoming.
The savings and loans companies were actually looking for these things, and now that it has come, those who are interested and who expressed interest and also qualify, they are ready to take advantage of it.
The fact is that it doesn't come free, and so what do you make of that one? And do you think that will limit your members who want to take advantage of this?
The bottom line is that there's nothing free, and so if they say they are giving it at a rate which is very moderate, example, if you look at the release, the monetary policy release from the central bank said that they are even granting or advancing more support to the government at the policy rate 14.5. If the central bank give this rate to financial institutions at 14.5, I think that it will go a long way, and it will even influence the interest rate in the market.
Now, the local currency, the cedi, loses 1.4% value to the US dollar. Details in a compilation of some headline stories in the world of business.
The Ghana cedi declined in value by about 1.4% to the US dollar in the first 4 months of this year. March 2020, the Bank of Ghana's summary of financial and economic data has shown, as of 13th May 2020, the cedi depreciated by 1.5% to the dollar. The cedi was therefore trading at 5 cedis, 607 pesos on interbank forex market, but higher at 5 cedis 95 pesos at the forex bureau. As of May 6, 2020, the cedi had declined in value by 1.18% to trade at 5 cedis 60 pesos to the US dollar on the interbank forex market, but selling at 5 cedis 93 pesos at the forex bureau. Currency analysts believe the active support of the Bank of Ghana on daily basis has helped slow down the depreciation of the cedi despite the gradual rebound of the global economy after some countries eased their lockdown restrictions from the coronavirus pandemic. Government has directed the exclusion of some imports from its reduction in benchmark values by a range of 30% to 50%, which has been implemented with effect from April 4, 2019. This was announced in a circular from the Ghana Revenue Authority dated May 4, 2020. However, Gold Street business is still unable to confirm which goods are affected by this partial policy reversal. Following the circular, there are expectations among some importers that this may be a precursor to a complete policy reversal that would restore the benchmark valuation on all goods to their levels prior to last year's cut, which was 30% for vehicles and 50% for all types of imports. The benchmark import valuation is the value placed on an import from GRA in assessing the import duty payable.
I'll be back at 8:15 with more business news updates. My name is Sandra Esinam Apeno, but Hans Andorpia is standing by with the sports news.
Time for sports on Joy News Prime. My name is Hans Mensah, and we begin with some sports betting. Prolific sports bettor Adolf, who also doubles as a cashier, has been speaking to Joy Sports Oreku Nyameshampof on how post-COVID-19 will be changing its strategy in the betting business, especially as the German Bundesliga resumes this weekend.
Yes, I'm still at it.
Okay, so let's start with how life was before the coronavirus. Things were very normal. And you mentioned two sports that you're interested in, football and basketball. What was, getting to the weekend like for you? What do you look at when you are getting into the weekend and about to get that slip ready?
It was always thrilling. It was always thrilling. Every weekend with basketball, I get to catch basketball on a daily basis. So life was fun. Life was really fun. Even if you lose the bet, the bragging rights, hey, my team won. Yes, you love that side as well. So yeah, prior to coronavirus, life was very fun. But then now, you look back at things and you realize how much of an impact sports has on your life. So now it's like 60% of whatever you love doing in the world is gone, and you have to really adjust. So yes, tough times we are still managing and all, and yeah, hopefully we are just praying this thing goes by and yeah, see how quick we can get back to life.
Okay, so we'll come to the impact, but before the virus, how frequently were you winning in terms of your slips?
Let's just say I was your above average winner, so probably above average, like 35 or 40% of your bets. So I have 3 slips on Friday, possibly one wins, and it's a nice feeling.
So you stated that you are a cashier, and you combine that, they call it being a betpreneur.
Yes.
How is it like combining these two jobs?
It's fun. Well, I look at my current profession as my work, strictly work. But then when it comes to bet, I see bet as a fun way of making money. So it's like work plus all the fun. and everything. So yes, it's pretty nice to balance and everything. It only becomes a problem when you're trying to cook up the odds and you know people come in and people are trying to purchase stuff and everything. So now you need to stop. Your concentration is a bit imbalanced and everything. But at the end of the day, it's very nice. It's very nice because I get to close early. I get to really check the fixtures and see where my interests lie, see where my strengths are and everything. So yes, it's very nice.
And let's talk about the virus. And you know, it's been around for quite some time now. Sport has been affected, particularly in the past 2 months, with various events being cancelled and you know pushed back further. And there's a lot of uncertainty. How have you felt in this period that you cannot be able to do something that you do love that gives you money?
It's depressing. I hate to go extreme with the words, but I think depression is a fair statement of what we are going through right now. Because every betpreneur, as you said it, you wake up in the morning and usually the first thing that comes to your mind is, okay, what games do I have available? Right now you wake up and there's nothing. Everything is like drained out. So yes, it takes away a lot from you, but at the end of the day we are just praying calm, and I mean this is bigger than football and sports. So at least we are saying our prayers and hopefully football gets back and sports gets back. Yeah.
Okay, but even before the football, you know, does come back, there's been various options for still betting in the betting industry. There's horse racing, and then there are some virtual games out there. Have you tried that, and how's the experience been?
I haven't tried. I think that the last thing bet I did was roulette. I think that was it. But
how did that one go?
That you know it's like trying something new, and it's I haven't really, and definitely yes, it's going to take its toll. It'll take some time to get used to. I know it will. So as someone who bets, I'm looking at these and I'm like, yes, this is something to really look out for. This is something to pay attention to. So most definitely, I'm going to go easy on my bets. I'm not going to be too hopeful. I'm going to look for the most realistic odds and everything, and yeah, it'll work.
And the asset bets right now.
And the action returns in Germany, an opportunity for those who are bettors to cash in. That's it for me for now. I'll be back with more.
It's your election headquarters, and it's time to talk a bit more politics, because the Electoral Commission has been responding to the opposition NDC's claim that the outfit is scheming to rig the general elections for the governing NPP. Before we get into details of the statement, let's listen to what the NDC said yesterday at the press conference.
It does appear that the Jimensa-led EC, ably supported by the Kenatefa-led NIA, are only interested in rigging the 2020 general elections for President Akufo-Addo and the ruling New Patriotic Party through voter suppression in NDC strongholds. Clearly, a conspiracy between the EC, NIA, and President Akufo-Addo to rig the 2020 general election. It is the kind of conspiracy that has plunged many a country into chaos and instability. We of the NDC do not wish this for our dear country, hence our constant warnings. The exclusion of the voter ID card from the requirement of registration for the national ID card by the Akufo-Addo-led government was part of a well-calculated scheme to disenfranchise a good number of Ghanaians from acquiring a national ID card, Ghana card, which was to be used subsequently as one of the registration requirements in the new voters register plan they had long hatched.
Well, the NIA has also since responded to that, but let's get to the Electoral Commission's response. And it says that it's once again noted with concern attempts by the NDC to misinform the general public and the electorate about its operations and bring its name into disrepute at a press conference held Thursday, 14 May 2020. The Electoral Commission is not oblivious of the calculated attempts by the NDC to repeatedly peddle untruths and falsehoods aimed at tarnishing its image and causing disaffection for it. It is impossible for the Commission to conspire with any political party or institution, as been speculated by Mr. Poswampofo and the NDC, since the electoral processes remain transparent at all levels.
The Ghana AIDS Commission is advising persons living with HIV against defaulting in taking their antiretroviral drugs, especially in this COVID-19 era. Officials say though everybody is at risk, HIV patients are more vulnerable and require strong immunity to withstand any attack, and therefore is calling on all persons living with HIV/AIDS not to forget to use their antiretrovirals. Nana Tensu Mensah has more on this report.
The AIDS Commission encourages patients to adhere religiously to dosage for their antiretrovirals. Olivia Graham is Ghana AIDS Commission Technical Coordinator for Ashanti Region.
You know, everybody is at risk with COVID-19, and for persons living with HIV, if they are on their medications, the medications help them. It suppresses the viral load and it helps boost their immunity. So if they're on the medication, it's better for us. But if they are not on the medication, that is where there will be problems. So we will take this opportunity to advise all who are defaulting that this is the time they have to come to the facility for their medicines. And those who also don't know their HIV status, it is very important that you get to do the test. You know whether you are positive or not. If you are positive, you are put on the medications and it will help you. If you are negative, then you continue to live a life that will keep you negative.
Stigmatization remains a huge challenge to the fight against HIV because people are reluctant to test for it or disclose their status. COVID-19 patients face similar negative public attitude with reports of community protests to setting up of isolation centers. Not even recovered persons are spared the stigma. The Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly COVID team is mounting a campaign against stigma through drama and sketches. Dr. Ernest Kwakon is technical advisor.
KMM, we've been doing education using your good media, print and electronic. But I think the fight has gotten to a point where we need to carry it further. No nation can fight its own epidemic within this global pandemic of COVID-19 if it does not have an elaborate plan for anti-stigma. Stigma is a huge thing that can really impede our efforts at fighting. We have conceived an idea which has not been able to take off a bit. It's like in the cryopod. And that idea is to use some means of communication to get to ordinary people and to emulate that or to mimic the lifestyle that they live every day.
About 63 buildings earmarked for demolition to make way for a road project at Abofo in the Ashanti region is creating anxiety among owners. Residents say pulling down the structures without proper arrangements just 13 days after notice was served is unfair. They are surprised and disappointed at the development, for which they want government to intervene. Mahmoud Mohamed Nouruddin's report.
17th of April, this last month, we were here and some people came and marked our house, telling us that they will demolish it. We were thinking that they were joking. Really, 4 days or later, they started doing their work.
Hamidu Salam is one of over 500 people here in Offenso South municipality who are likely to lose their property.
They are demolishing the houses. We have no place to sleep. That is why we want the government to come in and tell us whether it is right to be doing that work, demolishing our houses without any compensation. We don't know whether that one is the right thing to be done in Ghana.
They've not told us where exactly they are relocating us to. I've had this land for close to 30 years now.
Queen Dachi is a physically challenged widow. Her husband died last December and she now has to fend for herself and 3 children. So I ask if there are any plans for her.
As I speak with you now, I have a fractured hand. I have lost my husband. I have lost my child too. Now where to lay my head has also become a problem for me. I pleaded several times with them not to demolish my building, but all fell on deaf ears.
Well, maybe a miracle would save Madam Dachi.
I leave God to be the judge in this demolition. It is exactly a month now after I returned from my husband's funeral. And look at what has happened to me again.
For many others, however, they can only look up to God to change their fate. They gather to discuss what they say is beyond them. Neither local authorities nor the project engineer could be reached for comment. A report by Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin.
Motorists who use the Tema motorway should have their travel time reduced significantly when the newly constructed Tema interchange is open to traffic on Saturday. The interchange has connections to Accra, Akosuma, Aflao, and adjoining communities in Tema. The Ghana Highway Authority led the media on a tour of the project as finishing touches were being done ahead of Saturday's opening. Mamiesi Thompson was there for Joy News.
The new Tema interchange forms part of the Grade Separation Project. The contract was signed in 2015, but construction started in June 2018, funded by the Japanese government with approximately $55.6 million through the Japan International Cooperation Agency, JICA. It will reduce travel time and congestion, as well as boost the image of the metropolis. Roland Nikwe is project coordinator of the GHA.
Currently, what is being done is tidying up, clearing of sweeping off dust and other things on the road, and then do a few slope grassing works and other things. But that will not impair the functionality of this intersection. It has greatly improved. Looking at it, will be practically less than a minute. You should navigate this intersection, and then you are off to wherever you are going. The commander of MTTD for Tema region, and they will be on standby on the Saturday of the when all the authorities and officials present to coordinate activities to ensure safely opening of the overpass to the general public.
Manager of Shimizu Dai Nippon JV, the Japanese construction firm undertaking the project, Mr. Eugene Umera, says despite challenges that were faced, especially in the COVID era, the project has been delivered within schedule.
This project is really the big project, and a lot of challenge we had. But during the almost more than 2 years we worked here, but during a lot difficulties. But that difficulty is also always we get the cooperation from our client. Yes, in particular the Honorable Minister Atta. Yes, and also MRH, JHA. So those, and also around the Tema community. Yes, those people also all cooperative. So that's why even this project, is challenging project, but we could finish, yes, safely and on time. So this project we have a 1-year maintenance period. So after 1 year, yes, the GHA. They will take all the maintenance work.
Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Highway Authority, Diane Siade, says the authority is impressed with the work done and will ensure it is well maintained.
I look forward to applying that route. Now, with an overcrowding rate hovering around 50%, most of Ghana's prisons present fertile grounds for the spread of diseases. Many of the prison facilities have endured outbreaks like scabies, tuberculosis, hepatitis, and in 2018, the H1N1 influenza. Prison authorities at the Ankafu maximum security prisons say they need the support of corporate bodies and organizations to prevent the spread of the coronavirus and, in addition, help equip the inmates with the skills. The prison authorities asked for the support when the Metropolitan Archbishop of Cape Coast, the Most Reverend Gabriel Palmer Bakel, visited the facility. Richard Kwejunyako has more in the following report.
In their quest to prevent the spread of the coronavirus diseases from entering the prisons, the Ankafu maximum security prisons has put in place measures to curb the spread. The facility has endured outbreaks in times past that even resulted in about 300 prisoners, as well as about 100 officers and their dependents suffering from the H1N1 influenza. Though protocols to prevent the spread of communicable diseases are activated whenever required, overcrowding renders the effort somewhat counterproductive.
Father, lift up your hands upon them. We pray that your Holy Spirit,
Metropolitan Archbishop of Cape Coast, the Most Reverend Gabriel Palmer Bakel, praying for the inmates and the prison officials.
These are our sons and our daughters, wherever they are. We pray for your divine protection over the officers and their family members.
Even though visits to prisoners form part of the prison services drive to encourage continuous family support to the incarcerated, prisoner visits by friends and families are discouraged, as there are fears either prison staff or visitors may pass on the disease to prisoners. Deputy Director of Prisons in charge of the Central Region, Dominic Nicholas Arthur, wants some support for the inmates.
I want to add this. Inmates, as vulnerable as they are, we need corporate bodies, we need institutions, faith organizations to come and help the prison system. Government alone cannot do it. It is the faith organizations, philanthropists, individuals who can help us to maintain the inmates and their welfare. We need a lot of things like rehabilitation and reformation activities. Actually, we don't want to be housing them like poultry farmers. And we want to train them in this artisans, like plumbing, medicine, carpentry, and joinery. Then welding as well, refrigerator as well. Then we also wanted to also enter into income-generating activities. So it is only the philanthropists and the faith organizations that can help us so that we can support the government.
The Cape Coast Archdiocese of the Catholic Church, led by the Archbishop, the Most Reverend Gabriel Palmer Bakel, donated some food items, PPEs and other hand-washing materials to the prison officers and the inmates. Caritas Project Director, Reverend Father Stephen Amwajisi, spoke on behalf of the Archdiocese.
However, we decided a little we can do to help them. We will do it as we wait to see what their actual needs are.
On the back of the story, let's analyze imposing custodial sentencing on persons found guilty of spreading, for instance, fake news. Before we get into it, what constitutes fake news and what is the punishment for it?
Making or sharing fake videos or news is a crime punishable under Ghanaian law. Section 76 of the Electronic Communications Act 2008, Act 775 says, a person who by means of electronic communications knowingly sends a communication which is false or misleading and likely to prejudice the efficiency of life, safety, service, or to endanger the safety of any person commits an offense. On summary conviction, the offender is liable to a fine of not more than 36,000 cedis or a term of imprisonment of not more than 5 years or both. A person is taken to know that a communication is fake or misleading if that person did not take reasonable steps to find out whether the communication was false, misleading, reckless, or fraudulent. Please be reminded of this law before you post or share fake news on WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and all other electronic media platforms, as you may be held personally liable for the message you post, forward, or share. Making or sharing fake videos is a crime punishable under Ghanaian law. This message is brought to you by the Operation COVID Safety Committee, Ministry of National Security, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Information, Ghana Health Service, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Security Governance Initiative Secretariat, Ghana Police Service, Ghana Armed Forces, CSDS Africa, and Food and Drugs Authority.
Let's have a discussion on this. Joining me via Zoom is Edmund Damakwe Foley. He is a former law lecturer at GIMPA and, of course, the Director of Programs at the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa. That's the IHRDA. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Foley. It's good to see you once again. But I want to find out what your general take is on Ghana's fake news law.
Thank you. Good evening, MFR. Good evening to all your listeners as well. I have had occasion to write a couple of articles on the Electronic Transactions Communications Act in the past. And so it's a piece of legislation I'm quite familiar with. I am not surprised that we've come to this stage in Ghana where we have passed this amendment, I think, or have brought this provision to the fore on fake news, given that we are in very uncertain times. And so generally, I think it is something that has been there. I think in the wisdom of government, they would want to educate the citizenry on the existence of this law and how serious it is in these times. I do have some concerns over the punishment though, given the way in which I think we should approach the criminal law and how we actually pass it in these times. And I'm sure those are the views we'll be talking about in a couple of seconds.
The issue about 36,000 Ghana cedis fine or custodial sentence for spreading fake news is the punishment. Some have asked whether it is deterrent enough or rather too harsh. Shouldn't we be looking at other alternatives in terms of punishment?
I think in contemporary times, the approach to criminalizing conduct has changed very much from the, I would say, the very traditional retributive or the punishment objective of developing crimes. Today, if you look at the nature of our societies, you have to consider a lot of factors. Earlier in the course of the day, I was sharing with a few friends that in drafting a criminal statute, you have to take into account, the nature of the society you are dealing with. Now, if we look at the law as it is, even before we get to the punishment, how a person comes to determine that something is fake news. Ghana is one of the countries with the highest internet penetration. But let us look at the demographic of the population and who has access to this material. To be honest with you, MFR, I do not think that many of our people can really discern what is fake and what is not. You see a post from a supposed scientist from Japan, or China saying that this is the position on coronavirus. How many Ghanaians have the sophistication to unpack that before they send, or even have that moment to consult, and who? And so I think that to immediately start speaking about this provision without enough public education on information outlets, you may have a situation where a lot of people who otherwise would not have been caught by this provision would be caught by it, and they would not be able to meet that fine and would invariably end up in jail.
Well, but I would finally take your opinion on this also, imposition of custodial sentence. I was alluding to it earlier, but we know that we don't have community sentencing also. We've been told this week, for instance, that Cabinet is still reviewing that. But what do you feel about custodial sentencing in this particular issue, especially fake news, I should say?
I would expect that we really, as a first step, consider other options to custodial sentencing. I think the Ghana, even before COVID-19 or any other global concern at the moment, has had issues with prison populations. In fact, there has always been a community sentencing has always been part of the alternative sentencing guidelines developed by the judiciary and the Attorney General's Department, which we really haven't seen being actioned. And so I think as a first step with such a provision, we would have at least tried to see other ways of engaging people in those alternative sentencing regimes rather than to have gone for such a heavy punishment. I am by no means underrating the seriousness of sending out fake news, but I think that it should really be looked at in context, in the Ghanaian context.
Well, Mr. Foley, we are grateful, and we miss you in Ghana. Please come back soon. That's
I will. Thank you,
Mr. Edmond Namakwe Foley is a former law lecturer at GIMPA and currently the director of programs at the Institute for Human Rights and Development in Africa. And beware, you still cannot spread fake news in the times that we are in. Now, the global pandemic, COVID-19, has been wreaking havoc. We'll get to that shortly and talk about COVID-19 and technology. We'll take a quick break. We're right back.
Back and let's do more business news. And as Ghana's COVID-19 case count soars, businesses continue to respond to the call by government to boost local production of essential items that will help fight the pandemic. The latest to step up the plate is iron and steel production company Fabric Metal. The company is partnering the Ministry of Health to supply free oxygen to hospitals across the country. That's more in the following report.
From the production of PPEs and essential medicines, President Akufo-Addo said he is impressed with the response of local manufacturers to the fight against COVID-19. According to health experts, the treatment of critical COVID-19 cases are largely dependent on the availability of ventilators. However, many hospitals lack an essential commodity that helps in its administration: oxygen. It is for this reason that Fabric Metal is partnering with the Ministry of Health to provide free bottles of oxygen to government hospitals across the country.
When we met Dr. Okuboy, he told us that oxygen is so critical to the fight against coronavirus. So we decided to make it an open program to all health institutions that will be in need of oxygen until we fight and win this battle. We have a facility, we can provide about 1,400 cubic meter of oxygen weekly to institutions free of charge without. What we require is that they must have the oxygen bottles because we have limited bottles here. So if they bring their oxygen bottles, we fill for them free.
CEO of the company Rohat Raj says though this has slowed down production, it has become necessary because of the global crisis, adding it falls within the company's corporate social responsibility.
And we are continuing to explore any other requirements the hospitals have. We are looking at finding other platforms and other interventions where we can support Ministry of Health and Government of Ghana to counter this pandemic. This indeed is a part of our corporate social responsibility, but then this crisis has just ushered in certain innovative ways. We thought that oxygen, while we would produce oxygen ourselves, which was scarce for us itself, for our production processes, which was a constraint, a limitation, but we decided to cut down on our productions and support the hospitals with this important requirement what they have.
Already, the Kolebu and Lekma hospitals have received in excess of 200 bottles of oxygen. Human Resource Manager Bernard Senyo Avatri says support was first extended to the Pram community where the company operates and its staff.
So through the Pram District Assembly, the District Chief Executive, Honorable Jonathan, we came up with an intervention program. We bought rice, oil, and soap, and then we distributed to the communities, around. The objective of that is to reach out to about 250 families. In the process, we got to about 300 families with rice, oil, and soap. Then our workers were also, at the time, in the house. So we got some rice and we distributed to our workers that were around.
Meanwhile, they are ensuring strict adherence to safety protocols.
Crude oil sold for $32.58 a barrel. Here are the figures in the commodity news. So that'll be all. I'm sorry we can bring you international business news because of technical problem, but my name is Sandra S. and I'm up and log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news updates. Stay home, stay safe, and stay beautiful.
Thanks for staying with us here on the Joy News Prime. Now, the global pandemic, COVID-19, has been with us for some time now. We all know. Now, world leaders and tech companies are working around the clock to find solutions in response to the pandemic or minimize its impact on human lives and economies. The challenge now is making it through the new normal we're all experiencing, such as working from home, social distancing, wearing a face mask in public, washing hands with soap and running water, and cleaning your hands with alcohol-based hand sanitizers is a rule that has come to stay so that we can all stay safe. Technology has been central to finding a solution to making life easier for people and businesses since the declaration of the pandemic. With me in the studio tonight to discuss how we are using technology to fight COVID-19. First, via Zoom, I have Ameyal Deborah. He's a tech and social media influencer, a blogger, and founder of Ameyal Deborah Media. Of course, we all know Ameyal Deborah. Welcome. We also have Philip Ashong, technology journalist and analyst, also joining us via Zoom. Welcome, Philip. And then in the studio, I have Kweku Esuman Kwansa. He's a chief technical officer, career business, Huawei, Ghana. Grateful to have you in the studio as well, Mr. Kwansa.
It's a pleasure.
So, gentlemen, thanks for keeping me company tonight. But I'm curious how COVID has been treating you. I want to find out from Philip first. Philip, how has COVID treated you?
Well, it's changed the way I view a lot of things currently. Everything from the technologies that I interact with to how I publish my stories, how I gather my news, how I interact with my guests on my radio show, for example. I mean, it's changed everything. And I think it's very instructive that we always keep in mind the lessons that we are picking up from our COVID experience so that, you know, we can adapt all these new tools that are being made available to us. I mean, gone are the days when I would have been in the studio with you. But now, because of social distancing and because of the capability of Zoom and other video conferencing platforms, I'm able to sit here in my office and have these interactions with you. And I think that, you know, for me as a technology journalist, it's been incredible, really.
Sure has been. Ameyal, how has blogging been in the COVID season?
Well, it's been interesting. I mean, for us, we're able to blog anywhere we are. But in the last 2 years, I sort of put up a team where they do publish on the website in addition to create content, video content. And so far, in terms of the handling the website content, because it's easy to do it remotely, all they need is internet. So we've sort of done that quite well. But when it comes to the video production, that's where, we've had a little bit of a difficulty. And so we don't produce regularly like we would. We now only produce very specific content that we have to do within the time. So, yeah.
On a lighter note, we want to check that cough too. Mia, we want to check that. But Mr. Kwansa, we've been chatting on what you've been doing this COVID period, working from home and staying disciplined. I'm sure you briefly want to touch on that too with us.
Interestingly, at this period, what I miss most the very basic need for human connection. Being able to see, spend time with our family and friends, it's been challenging. But I think that in order for us to beat the pandemic, we would have to adhere to these strict rules in order to beat the pandemic.
Okay, so we get straight into it. At this point, I'm very interested in national connectivity in the COVID season. So as a person in network and mobile telephony, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on national connectivity?
First and foremost,
because of around the world there are stay-at-home orders. So primarily what has happened is there's a lot of increase in traffic. The more users are doing more on their network because they are stuck at home.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, networks are also facing enormous pressures. We see that video services, working from home applications, like what you are using to call, yes, gaming, these are all increasing a lot. So as far as the COVID is concerned, this has brought about a lot of traffic, around 30 to 60% increase in traffic globally. And also at the same time, it has presented new opportunities, especially in the ICT space. So I would say there are challenges, but of course, challenges give us the opportunity to grow.
Innovate, well, of course. But as a blogger, Amel, with global reach, we all know that. How has this affected industry in general, you would say?
Impact has been amazing. I mean, very heavy. According to the IMF's forecast last month, the global GDP growth rate will drop to some -3% in 2020. So it shows you how much the impact is going to be felt globally. In Ghana, we've sort of had this, we felt it in various sectors. The entertainment and creative art space has, of course, had to cancel a lot of major activities like the Ghana Music Awards. For instance, Easter in Kwel, which is an annual big event, this year didn't happen. So the pandemic has sort of brought a lot of challenges, but in it also various industries would have to find ways to sort of deal with it now, and then also how to, in the near future, come out of it. Retail, catering, accommodation, tourism, transport, culture, entertainment industry have all experienced a sharp decline in revenue. I think the manufacturing industry has also been very, very slow. I remember when we even had the lockdown, there were exemptions for people who work in the manufacturing sector, and they had to cut down a number of people who were going to work and all of that. So this large-scale shutdown of enterprises has led to a sharp drop in power demand and all of that. And one of the opportunities that have come out is also for us to find alternative ways of sort of doing business. And we've seen a rise in people working from home. Online education has sort of propped up as an alternative for people to look at the education. We also have online medical and all of that. So these have been some of the challenges on the economy, as well as maybe some of the opportunities that lie therein.
Wow, the impact has been enormous though, but what does this mean for the digital ecosystem? Philip, as a tech journalist.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have to go very far. I am connecting with you via Zoom. If that is not a testament of the impact, of ICT on our daily lives and the tech ecosystem, I don't know what really is. But I mean, even beyond that, when you look around the world, you look at countries like China and Germany, all these other countries are using and adapting ICT tools within this pandemic period in some very, very amazing ways. We're talking in terms of e-health or health tech. We're talking in terms of even the farmers and the way they are adapting technology. We saw that before the pandemic. We were seeing a sharp rise in that. When you go to the hospitals, that the connections that doctors need to establish with other doctors in other regions, we are seeing a lot of collaboration, and it's incredible that with all of this coming together, you just sometimes wonder what is happening with access and how fast people can get access to some of these platforms. There's going to be obviously a lot of people, and I believe the communication minister and some other members of the tech ecosystem have come up to talk about it. The fact that for a lot of places you realize that internet speeds are reducing, but it's just because there are so many people who are logged on at one particular time, and therefore we need more space to be able to get more people to use the internet. And I believe that what this has shown us is that there are clear opportunities available within the space, but then there are also some loopholes that need to be fixed. So whereas these opportunities exist, these loopholes are something that I'm guessing will give technology entrepreneurs across the country a sense of an opportunity, possibly, about some of the solutions they can think about and create within this particular period.
Okay. Well, let me come to you, Mr. Kwanzaa. I'm very interested in Huawei Ghana because of the restrictions of movement has resulted in huge voice and data traffic. What are technology giants like yourself doing to ensure that to contain the huge load, for instance, when it comes to data traffic?
Okay, so actually we work with the telecom service providers and to optimize their networks. So remember I said because of the stay-at-home orders, user behavior is changing. So people are staying home. Traffic is shifting from the central business district into the residential areas.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's huge demand. So even the peak periods of networks are shifting. Because now during the day, in the morning up to 10 a.m., we see a surge in the traffic volumes. So actually, we are working together with the telecom service providers to optimize the network, make good use of the resource as is. Again, we also work together with our service providers to expand the networks. So we do fast deployments with them, and this expansion also enables them to make use of the policies that have also been announced by the government in favor of improving the connectivity in the country.
So one thing I have noticed is that the whole epidemic, the government and enterprises have accelerated the execution of the favorable policy in ICT, National Communications Network, and the application of emerging technologies, not only preparing for the subsequent epidemic control, but also driving the digital transformation of various industries for quick economic recovery. So Philip, what are some of the key policies and programs that are helping us fight against COVID-19 with technology in mind?
Well, I mean, there have been quite a number, but for me, key among some of these, for example, is the release of the 3 months of the temporary spectrum that the government announced for MTN and Vodafone because they bear the brunt of a lot of the traffic. I believe that was a very, very important intervention by the government. One of the things that also really caught my eye was using technology to help the Ghana Health Service. So there was the establishment of the emergency communication services, basically where people could be located either their mobile numbers or their GPS location in case there was a service supposed to be rendered to them, or even in contact tracing. And I think that was also a very key input from the government. What I also found very interesting was the establishment of offices. And I was very, very impressed with this from the Communications Ministry, where public service personnel could actually connect, to a system to be able to get their work done. And I thought that was very, very, very impressive. And I believe at the last press conference, the Minister of Communications actually indicated about 20,000 workers were on the platform, were able to connect, and either through voice or through video to get work done remotely from their homes. Previously, we wouldn't have had that, and the adoption rate, I believe, has been pretty incredible. We have also seen the launch of the COVID app, the symptom tracker app, which initially
a number of them have popped up, though.
I believe they worked to try and correct that, and I think that all these things clearly show a government that wants to try to do its very best to fix the problem using all these ICT tools that are available.
I'm itching to hear from Amea Deborah also on how this whole thing is influencing. They're using technology to influence lifestyle, entertainment, and social media in the fight against the pandemic.
Well, I think our sector has been the one that has kept everybody entertained and sort of sane, because, with all the information that's going on, it can be very draining mentally. But I think apart from the obvious use of some of these platforms to disseminate even the important news of what's happening around the virus and keeping people up to date, even on social media, you realize that All the ministries are very active. They're putting information out there. Even when they're having press conferences, they're doing live streaming and all of that. So I think that space has sort of has been very good in terms of spreading information around the virus. And I mean, with the help of technology, we've also seen a lot of virtual concerts. So people who maybe shows that were supposed to happen, like the Three Music Awards, now couldn't be held. And so they had to find alternative ways of doing it. And technology now allows it. Of course, that TV-wise, it's there already, but also now technology allows you to stream this content on social media, on a lot of different streaming platforms. And we've seen that happen, and we are even seeing more to happen this weekend and beyond as well. Globally, there's been a spike in the use of social media. Most media houses, like I said, have been using it, and not just social media, but other interconnecting technologies like Zoom. Anytime I tune on to Joy or TV3, whatever the platform, everybody is using some form of technology to engage people, to talk about the subject. We've also seen a lot of these video on demand and streaming platforms and cable TV, such as Netflix and even DSTV, sort of giving us more flexible terms in terms of affordability of the packages they're offered. So it's a time that everybody has sort of understood the need to go digital, and a lot of people within the industry are thinking along those lines. And so far, I think it's
if I leave you, I know you go on with all the things that you need to be done. But let me come to Mr. Quanta so we can quickly wrap up. This is a conversation I was hoping we could go on and on with. But how is Huawei Ghana hoping to propel enterprises during the post-COVID-19 season? Okay, so let me start off with we have done a lot of donations to support the fight against the pandemic. Chief amongst them is in education. Our Huawei Academy has a work from study from home program, which has enrolled around 300 Ghanaian students to gain certification in networking. Is it too late to enroll? I want to enroll. I'm sure it's never too late. It's never too late to learn. So that is there, and we have also donated video conferencing tools and smart body temperature sensing cameras as well. On the other hand, we are also doing a lot with the service providers, sharing insights from a global and regional level to help them to plan adequately. We hope that post this COVID period, ICT will be an accelerator which can really push the economy forward, that can support the economy to grow. And we hope to see increasing applications in high-speed network connectivity, in digital health, and also in education. So we look forward to post-COVID. We'll definitely have this conversation again. And Mr. Kwek Christman, we are grateful. He's the Chief Technical Officer, Career Business, Huawei Ghana. You also heard from Philip Ashon, and of course, Amiel Deborah. We'll have sports shortly after the break.
All right, and that'll be all for the bulletin this evening. I'm Israelai, anchoring from home, and I've been doing this with MFR Pao in the studio. You have a good night and a great weekend.